like one of my friends, he's like loves playing guitar, you know, and but he refuses to protect his ears even when he's playing, and you know all that stuff's going to catch up. Hopefully, yeah. I hope it doesn't, but you know it can. So
yeah, even years ago, I used to hang out in my friend's garage, and they would play the drums and the guitar and everything. Not trying to be a band or anything, just fucking around, having fun. Mm-hmm. And I'd be hanging out in the garage, man, but I wore earplugs every single time because it was loud. And it's like I love hanging out and, you know, having fun, but I don't want to lose my hearing doing it, so I'll wear earplugs.
Yeah, that was my last one, man.
Cool.
Check out Sound of Metal, everybody out there listening. It's on Prime right now. It just dropped. It's been out for a couple weeks, I think. And now we can segue into whatever you want. If you want to jump into the HBO Max streaming controversy.
Yes, we should. I know it got mentioned last week, kind of in passing, and I think we kind of brought it up earlier on this show. But as you know, I'm a big proponent of movie theaters. Mm-hmm. Having, you know, made my career in the film industry and the theatrical projection industry. And I want to see movie theaters survive. I think that they're very important, not just for my benefit, but, you know, just they're a cultural thing. You know, seeing a movie, especially a bigger movie on the big screen is fantastic. I can't imagine trying to watch, you know, a movie on my phone, even on my laptop sometimes, because I want that theatrical experience. I want to see it on the biggest screen possible, and, you know, not have to settle for something smaller. So this year has been a challenge for the movie theaters because, you know, they got shut down, you know, in most places, as was a smart thing to do. But, you know, they were closed. They weren't making any money. I know early on in the pandemic, some movies went straight to digital streaming. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, video on demand, and made some good money. I mean, Trolls was a big one that seemed to do a lot of business.
Scoob, I think.
Scoob, yeah, was another one. You know, mainly kids movies at that point in time because there wasn't a whole lot of content for kids. Kids were home. The parents were home with the kids. So those did very well. And then Universal came out, I think after the success of Trolls, and said, from now on, we're going to release our movies simultaneously on streaming and in the theaters. And I know that AMC really took offense to that, was really threatened by that, and said, we're not going to show Universal movies in our theaters anymore if that's going to be the case, because there's this contract between movie studios and the theaters that says we have to release movies in the theater. I think there's like a 90-day window between when a movie is shown in the theater and when it can premiere on demand or on a digital streaming service. And if movie studios are going to release them simultaneously, then that's a big stream of revenue that the theaters will lose out on. We talked about, like, with Trolls or Scoob or some of the other movies. I think Mulan was one that was going to charge like $30. Mm-hmm. You know? And it's a pandemic. It's obviously not safe to be going out to the theater. I know that's why some studios are doing this. I can't really fault them for doing it at this point in time. But if they're going to continue to do it going forward, then that's that's going to be a real death knell for movie theaters. My thing with the Mulan $30 thing, or if, say a movie we didn't really talk about, but I can talk about right now, like Tenet, was kind of one that came back. If they had said we're going to release Tenet for $30 on demand, you go to the movies, most, if not all, of that ticket price goes back to the studio. And it's kind of a tiered, as time goes by, the theater can get more and more, a bigger percentage of the ticket price.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the studio takes all of that money. So where do movie theaters make their money? They make their money in concessions. That's why, a popcorn and a drink cost you $10. That's where they're making their money. And you release these movies on digital, and even if they're, pay $30 to see them, and people say, oh, well, I can pay the $30 because if I went to the movie theater, I'd be paying for a ticket, I'd be paying for popcorn, for soda, for, a kid's ticket, my wife's ticket, whomever, and all this, and it's going to cost us a ton of money to go. But you don't realize that the movie ticket price all goes to the studio. The concessions all goes to the theater, but if you're paying $30 at home, none of that movie is going to the theater. That movie, none of that money, excuse me, let me redo that because I think I messed up there. All of that money is going to the studio, none of it is going to a theater. They're not making any money off concessions when you're paying $30 to stream it at home or to watch it on demand at home. So that's where a big part of this controversy, not only with HBO Max, but like with Universal and with Disney and the Mulan thing, that's a big part of that is that this movie theater is not going to be making any money when you do that. Now, a couple weeks ago, it was announced that Warner Brothers, with all of their 2021 movies, which I don't know all the movies that are coming out, but I read that there was, I think, 14 of them. I'd have to look up to see. The one that I know about that we're going to talk about is Dune. Mm-hmm. But Warner Brothers announced that all of their 2021 movies are going to go simultaneously to HBO Max as they are going to open in the theater. And this created a big controversy, and some filmmakers really stepped up and said, no, this isn't right, because you're going to be making the money. Warner Media now is going to be making the money, not the movie theaters. You have to realize that when movies are shown, and especially when they get bought, when they get sold to TV, the people who work on them make residuals that they're going to be losing out on. The production companies that fronted a lot of the money for the making of the movie aren't going to be recouping their costs. The big controversy was with Dune. Legendary Entertainment, who's the production company on the film. Warner Brothers is the studio behind it, but Legendary is the one that fronted the majority of the money to make it. They're losing money on that deal with them going straight to HBO Max. Now, yes, the movie's going to open up simultaneously in the theater, so if you're like me and you want to go watch it in the theater, you still can. But most people who would have HBO Max, who don't want to go to the theater, say, oh, I'm fine watching the movie at home on, TV, not paying a ticket price. They're going to stay home and do it, and that's a big chunk of money that the theaters are going to lose out on there, because not as many people will be going to the theaters.
Because they won't have to.
They won't have to.
Yeah.
And hey, some people, like, the movie theater experience is not for them. They can get up, they can go to the bathroom, they can go get a snack, they can fucking talk till their heart's delight in the movies. So they would stay home. People like you And I want to go to a theater. I want to see the movie in the theater. I'm willing to pay to see a movie in the theater. I don't have to all the time because I work for movie theaters, so I can get in for free. So I realize I'm in a different position, but I'm always willing to pay to give the money to the ticket price, to give the money to the concession stand. So it's just this question of, is it right what Warner Brothers did? And I've heard both sides of the argument. I've heard a lot of people, especially online, saying, oh, this is great, I can watch the movie at home. But, you know, there's this, like I said, there's this contract with movie theaters that films need to be shown in the movie theaters. And if the studios are going to try to go to this streaming everything, or, you know, putting it on their service simultaneously, then movie theaters are losing a ton of money and could be in really bad shape. So it's this question of, is this right? Is it right by the production companies? Is it right by the filmmakers? Is it right by the movie theaters for Warner Brothers to do this? I don't think that it is. That's my position as someone who works in movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently a big part of why a lot of people were pissed is because Warner Media did not talk to the filmmakers, just made this decision. You know, you said Patty Jenkins was fine with it going to HBO Max, but I know that she doesn't want the third one to go to HBO Max. I know that she's had some reservations about, I don't want to direct a movie that's just going to go straight to streaming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to direct a movie that's for the theater, that will give you a theatrical experience. A lot of movies are shot knowing that they're going to be projected in a theater on a big giant screen with a really great sound system. They're shot and they're edited for that stuff specifically, not for your home TV. I don't care how great your sound system is at home. It's not going to be what the sound system is in the theater. But because Warner didn't clear this with a lot of the filmmakers, that's why a lot of them are really pissed. Is because they don't want their movies to be shown at home right away. They want them to be shown in the theaters. And I read that Judd Apatow was really upset with that decision. He doesn't work with Warner Brothers. I know he's worked with Universal a lot. He had a movie that came out during the pandemic on video on demand. But he said that Universal was very respectful. They asked him, are you okay with us premiering this movie video on demand, because this was supposed to be out in the theater in the summer, but that's not going to happen. And he said he was fine with that, but he said they came and talked to me and asked me my opinion. And it sounds like that's what happened with possibly with Wonder Woman 1984, was that they at least spoke with Patty Jenkins, and she wanted the film to be seen because, as we talked about last week, this film has been put on the back burner for a while. It kept getting pushed.
Yeah.
And I think at this point in time, it was just, I would like people to see the movie. It could be another 6 months before we're back in movie theaters. And it could be another year plus before we're back in movie theaters comfortably and feeling personally safe. Because I know even though theaters opened up for a couple of months, a lot of people still didn't go because they didn't feel safe, no matter what the movie theaters did to make sure that everything was safe and clean. You know, there's this feeling that I still don't want to sit in a room with people I don't know who might be sick, and I don't blame them for that. But it could be a long time before we are back in the theaters. So what do we do? Do we release the movie onto streaming services or video on demand? Or in the case of a lot of these movies, do we wait and push them later to when it might be a lot safer to go back to the theaters? And I know that's why Denny Villeneuve made the decision